All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here by my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you with another doubleheader episode. We are going to recap our Rams win over the New Orleans Saints 30-22 and preview our New Year's Eve matchup against the Giants in New York, or New Jersey, I should say, where MetLife is. So, Jake, we're going to do that. But before we start, I love your shirt.
Thank you so much.
Where
It
did you get
means a
it?
lot. I appreciate that question. So I actually got it from Into the AM. They sent it to me as part of a sponsorship deal.
Wow. Very
Yeah.
nice. And would you say that, like, so it's a short sleeve shirt. Are you getting cold? Like, are you cold in your studio right now? Are you warm? What is the temperature like exactly?
Well, so for those of you who don't know, that awesome Lakers hoodie, that with the full embroidery and everything, Alexis bought that as a Christmas gift for me.
I
Um,
did.
I did also get her a gift, so don't think it
Yes.
was one
He
sided.
he got me a
Um,
heated blanket. So for everyone who knows that I'm always cold, I do have a I don't have it on me right now, but I will have it on me later tonight. It's very nice and long overdue. I can't believe I didn't have one before now.
I can't believe we haven't called this the Hot and Cold podcast yet. But anyway, what I was
Yeah,
gonna what I was gonna say
so
is
true.
it's funny. So I was gonna wear that, right? Because I feel like every
Hmm.
time I wear it, it's when we're not recording. And I
Hmm.
love the thing so much. I wore it today when I was golfing.
That's
But
right.
yeah. But I didn't wear it this time because I told you right before we decided to do this, I just woke up from a nap. I was under immense blankets, we'll just say that, wearing a hoodie. So I was overheated and I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? It's short sleeve weather. And I feel good. Like I'm past. I know my voice sounds a little weird because I was recording a video at 4 a.m. Don't ask. That's just I'm psycho. But my voice is fine aside from like the sick and all that. I'm done with that. So yeah, I
That's
feel
good.
good. And you know what? Screw the fact that it's December 29th and it's cold out. I'm still, still rocking the short sleeve. I mean,
Ye-
you know,
Yeah. Hey, I think it's important we have these discussions about
very important.
temperature. People on the last episode were very interested in the fact that we talked about temperature.
Yes.
Um, so for those of you who don't know, what this bit, why we're being so obnoxious with this bit is so the last episode actually did very well. So I don't know, the Rams are hot right now, so our episodes are good, but we had a very good last episode, and Jake and I were like very overwhelmed with positive response. We actually were like, "Oh my God," like speaking for myself, Jake, I got so many positive messages.
Yeah,
And
you
no, I'm
asked
being
me if I told people you had a terminal illness because everyone
yeah,
was
I
being so nice to
genuinely
you.
I got so many messages after the last episode where people were like so kind. They're like, it's really nice to see you and Jake like let loose and just like not feel, so rigid at times and just having fun. And then, I got very nice compliments about like my jacket last episode and just very nice, stuff about my appearance, which is always appreciated. And so I was like messaging Jake and I was like, why are people being so like, did you say something? Like, this is like, I thought we had a great episode, but like it was like very, very kind. But there was a very small percentage of people, like 5%, that were so freaking mad that we opened the show with like our cold open was us not talking about football. And they're like, "Why are you talking about the temperature? No one cares if you're cold, Alexis. Like why are
Bah
you
humbug.
guys?" Yeah, they were
Scrooge is
so
here.
angry that, they were like, we don't, want to hear you guys talk about anything, but football." And then someone was mad that we weren't wearing Rams gear, even though like you've got Rams in your background. You can kind of tell that I have a Rams
I thought
blanket.
the Super Bowl banner and the helmet that everyone's asking me where I
Yeah,
get it was enough, but apparently not
yeah,
enough
but
Ram
it
stuff up
wasn't
in
for
here.
some people. So Jake and I, when we were talking, we're like, we're just gonna open up this episode and just really talk about temperature in detail because that's just really gonna make those guys mad. Um,
I mean,
we
hey,
don't
I
actually care
appreciate
about
everyone that
temperature.
watches our show. Appreciate everyone that listens to our
Yes,
show. At the
yes.
same time, there are people that have some issues. Constructive criticism is okay.
Hmm.
But I think what people need to understand is that my isolated YouTube videos versus our shows versus the shows I do with Cameron Lynch are all going to be vastly different. Otherwise, do you want just regurgitated same video over and over again? Cam and I have a different
Yeah.
flavor. Alexis and I have a different flavor. My solo stuff has a way different flavor. I've turned into more of a narrator the last few times, probably because I was running out of air because I've been sick. But
Yeah.
regardless, the whole point of a network, like, you know, streaming services, for instance, Disney Plus, they got Star Wars, they got the regular Disney originals, they got Marvel. They don't just have Marvel, or just all Mickey Mouse or all, you know, Kylo Ren. No, it's like it's mix and match and things like that. And I think
Yeah.
variety, but like subtle variety, is unbeaten.
Well, it also kind of is like, and again, this is we are giving way too much attention to the very few people right now, but
The
we
few, the
just,
proud.
yeah, we just were like, let's just talk about it because why
Yeah.
not? Like I said, I mean, people were very, I would very much appreciate people keep being kind to me. Everyone who's kind to me, like ever on this channel, I remember that. But it was kind of like when you and I started doing Downtown Rams, and the whole reason people liked me and that I think you liked me was that I'm just like just wasn't really a narrator, right? Like I was kind of just like if I'm gonna do the show, like I want to do the show like as friends talking at a bar about sports while also
Yeah.
filling in detailed information. Like if you went to the pub with your friend and you're talking about football, but then he also had like a lot of cool stats that were true and threw them in there, so you were getting like the best of both worlds. Like let's just be ourselves. And like, you know, I don't, this is, you know, Downtown Rams, we've been doing this now for, you've been doing it for 5.5 years, 6 years, 7 years.
Uh, well,
I should know this because I just made an entire video for you as a gift for the 500th episode for our listeners who have seen that, where I quite literally detailed the history of Downtown Rams. And of course, now in the moment, the numbers blanking. I've been doing this for 5 years in February.
so
So for
probably
you,
like
it should
six,
be,
7. I don't know.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. The point is, to your point, is that we've been doing it for a long time, and the show has gone through different moments. It wasn't a show initially. I was just interviewing people and saying I had a show, but I never actually started said show. Then I had Blaine on. Blaine and I are both very similar in our statistical analysis and everything. So that offered a different take on a show. Then I had Joe Curley, and Joe Curley had the in with the Rams, was covering the Rams, was credentialed and all that. So that gave a kind of a different perspective. Being able to say, hey, yeah, I talked with Daryl, or I talked to Todd, or I talked to Jared, you know, that was cool. Not Daryl, because he stopped before Daryl got there. But then I have you, and I mean, I think the
Who,
thing about us is that we text. I don't think people get this. We're best friends.
correct.
You know, you've changed my life. I've probably changed yours a little bit.
Of
Um,
course.
you know, but we text all the time, and we don't agree on every single thing. It's not an echo chamber, and I think that's why we you know, get along so well, because we can respect in 2023 going into 2024. We're one of the only people that can disagree so like so much on a topic and still like, I'm not going to hold it against you in any way. I'm not going to delete you out of my phone. I'm not going to block you on Twitter and Instagram and so forth. Like, we've disagreed on but we also agree on some things. And you know, I think it makes the discourse better, because I think I've learned some stuff just from our discussions. I hope, you know, you've learned some stuff from our discussions. And I think that's because there's a, you know, having like a friend, like a close friend, it's supposed to be like mutually beneficial. Otherwise, you're as good as the symbiote that sucks up Peter Parker and Eddie Brock. You know what I mean? like,
Totally
like
understood that reference. Totally on the
that's
same page.
well, you
Right.
know, right? Venom.
I've not seen Venom.
Well, you don't know the story.
No,
All right. Ready for the
I'm
most minimalistic explanation? Then we'll get into Rams football, since it's now 10 minutes into this.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love that we were like, let's do a 4 to 5 minute bit. And you know me, like the improv girl, I'm always like, can we do a bit? So we're like, let's do a 4 to 5 minute bit. And now we're at 10 minutes and I haven't
I'll
nearly
drop
covered
a
everything I
ping.
want, but it's okay.
Yeah, I'll drop a ping in the timeline. You know, the whatever it's called,
The
the timestamps.
multiverse, sure. I
No,
know
no,
that. I've
no,
seen
no.
Loki.
The no that no
Oh,
the
for YouTube.
timestamp on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
people
people
can
can skip
skip
this if
this.
they want to.
Cool. Cool. So now
So
you guys know if you want to
yeah,
skip below, there's going to be a timestamp. So
yeah.
for all the people that don't care about Venom, Jake, proceed.
Anyway, so the most minimalistic approach to this, Eddie Brock is a news reporter. Peter Parker's also, well, he's a photographer at the Daily Bugle. And actually you should know this, so shame on you, because Spider-Man 3 had our guy. Yes, he had our guy in it, right? Do you know who I'm
Wait,
talking about? Spider-Man 3 with Tobey
I
Maguire.
saw
There was a
and
guy who
Andrew
played Eddie
Garfield.
Brock. No, he played Eddie Brock. He got black goo on him, aka symbiote, which turned him into Venom. And that, my friends, was Topher Grace, who we ran into in Studio City.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Okay, I forgot. Okay, I forgot that Topher Grace was in. I have seen all of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans. I just
It is weird because it looks like Eric just got sucked up by a symbiote and turned into an alien, but that's not the point.
different a different timeline.
Yeah.
Different Eric's life took a different turn in a different multiverse.
Yeah, this is all the multiverse, and now that 70 show is a part of it. But yeah, anyway, that was fun. That was a free for all freestyle.
So we just pissed off a lot of people. So let's get no, but for real, like I don't like to draw attention to like the 5% of internet haters because we get so much good feedback and so much love that it is like I tell you this off air, but like
Yeah,
it makes me feel really good. Like especially when I have days like today, like I don't really feel great. I don't feel like I look great. I'm just like chugging through. I had a very long stressful week. So then when I do a show and I'm like God, I'm not feeling like confident or like feeling good, to get all those comments really is really kind and makes me happy. So if you guys have sent me any of those, I try to respond to all the ones I see. So thank you. But Jake, another thing that made me really happy was when the Rams beat the Saints on Thursday Night Football on prime time, and they looked real good doing it. So let's talk about this because you and I both predicted that the Rams would win on Thursday Night Football. I think we thought it would be more lopsided than it ended up being. I thought the Rams
yeah.
still looked really good. I think, at the end, I think sometimes the Rams can kind of just give up a couple touchdowns that were a little frustrating to watch, but it's like, how can you even complain that much when, they start off the game so hot? I mean, let's talk about, Matthew Stafford, 2 touchdowns, 328 yards, 0 interceptions. You got Kyron Williams rushing for 104 yards, averaging, at one point in the game, he was averaging like 6.5 yards per carry. It ended up being, I think, 4.7. Yeah, 4.7. He got a touchdown. Honestly, could have had more if they would have run more in the red zone, which we're going to talk about. Puka Nacua, another huge game. Just that's my cell phone. Jake, from there, what were your thoughts in the game?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just love that, and I think going into this, we talked about it. The big thing was that a Kyron Williams, a Puka Nacua, these young guys like Kobe Turner, Byron Young, so forth. These guys are getting a showcase down the stretch, the end of the season. Now these guys have, I won't say fully developed, right? There's still some development to be had, but they're really starting to get into their own, comfort zone. And I mean, Puka Nacua has a chance to break both the rookie receiving yards record held by Bill Groman in 1960, still to this day, and has a chance to break the rookie receptions record held by Jalen Waddle as of 2021 when he broke it that year. So think about it. I mean, he's playing out of this world. 9 catches, 164 yards, and a touchdown. If he gets 9 catches, 147, he breaks both records on Sunday against the Giants. So I think the cool thing about this game, first off, I love that Stafford said after the game that, we could have put 40 up. I love that he acknowledged, like, they had some opportunities where they should have been just an absolute drubbing. And I mean, to be fair, I think I mentioned in our show last week, I had this game being a little closer. But Colin Cowherd on his show said that the Rams would beat the Saints like a drum. And that's pretty much what they did. I know it was 30-22 at the end of the day, but just watching it, I mean, Derek Carr ends up with 3 touchdowns and interception, and this was his best game of his career against the Rams. We talked about it. He threw 7 picks without a touchdown against the Rams, so he looked better. But I mean, the Rams, what people don't want to talk about is that the Rams have gone away from abandoning the run themselves, and they're forcing teams to literally give up the run. Alvin Kamara had 9 carries for 19 yards, which is 2.1 yards per carry average, and they were just like, nope, done, not doing it. They took the run game completely out of it. And that's the thing. Like, if they can keep this up, I don't know who's beating them, because right now, you know, Matthew Stafford spread the ball around, but he didn't. He only threw it to 4 guys. Like, he threw it to Puka Nacua, caught 9 of 11 targets. Demarcus Robinson had a breakout game in front of the national stage. 6 catches, 82 yards, a touchdown, and on 6 targets, all of which came in the first half. Cooper Kupp, 6 catches for 52 on 12 targets, and Tyler Higbee caught 3 of 3 for 30. That was it. And I love that we now, 34 passes thrown by Stafford, 24 completed, 32 carries, 22 of which were Kyren. I just love the way Sean McVay, and I'm going to say this, and this is bold, this is the most balanced Sean McVay offense in his career. And I'm going to say something even more bold. 2018, they averaged 32 points with Jared Goff, right? That offense was crazy.
Yeah.
But this offense, the way they're playing right now, is better. It is. It's better. Kyren Williams is a better runner than Todd Gurley. I know that's really like, wow, Jake really just said that. Here's why I'm going to say that. Because it's no knock against Todd. I think Todd was on the level like Christian McCaffrey's on, where I think he's the best offensive player in the game right now. I think Todd was the best offensive player of the game. His explosiveness, that long speed. Kyren doesn't have that long speed. And Kyren doesn't have the luxury of being 6'1", 220, basically being, kind of like a linebacker that now the second level corners and safeties have to tackle when he gets there. Kyren's 5'9", $196. So I think Kyren is a better pure runner of the football, creates lanes with his cuts. I think he's not like Gurley at all, actually. He's really in this kind of a similar vein as a Marshall Faulk. As far as his running style, he's got a long way to go in the receiving game if he ever wants to be, mentioned Faulk's in the same sentence. But running style, the jump cuts, the creation of yards, those are things that Faulk did well. Todd was not just a straight runner. He could also make cuts and whatnot. He wasn't bouncing around where you have Kyren go up the middle and now he's bounced over 3 yards over and created another lane for himself. He does that a lot. And I think now, the national audience who just saw Kyren Williams as kind of their cash cow on their fantasy team, they've actually seen him play now because it was now that he is who he is. I mean, I think, the disrespectful thing is that, a lot of Niners fans and analysts about the Niner game will say he only had 47 rushing yards or whatever. Yeah, but he had like 55 receiving yards. Like he had 100 total yards in that game and 2 touchdowns. So he's somebody that just continues to get better and better. And I think while he has a long way to go in the receiving game, he's become such a good runner in such a short amount of time. And I think Ron Gould or Gold, however you say his name, the new running back coach, I think has a lot to do with the progression he's had. I think he's very good. But I mean, you watch him, you watch Darrell Henderson, you watch Ronnie Rivers, you watch Royce Freeman. That guy is not only the best running back in that room, with all due respect to them, he's astronomically better than them. And I think the craziest thing is that if you told me before the season that the Rams would be playing the Giants week 17, Saquon's healthy, and the best running back that's going to be on that field is Kyren Williams, I would have said that you were crazy. Now, I mean, Saquon's still Saquon, but since the injuries, like that rookie season where he had like 800 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards or whatever, like that was more like Gurley. He's not that anymore. He's just not. So I don't know if he'll ever be that again. And until he is, I would take Kyren. So I just feel like because Kyren Williams is so consistent lately, averaging over 120 yards a game over the last 5 games, it's allowed Sean to, one, you're going to stick with the run game now, but it's not an over, you're not giving him 30 carries. You're not leaning too heavily on the run. And I do have to mention the offensive line has done a great job. That move to go out and get Kevin Dotson has been life altering for the Rams. Yeah. But now it makes things easier on Matthew Stafford, which then when he's playing well, it makes things easier on Kyren Williams. Kyren doesn't need anything really that easy, and neither does Stafford. So when you have guys that can do what they do without, things being handed to them, they don't have to be in a certain system. And then you have things that are getting easier on them because this and this and this, it makes it a lot better. And when you have guys like Demarcus Robinson who emerged late in the season, who I made a video about this, Demarcus Robinson is the 2023 Rams version of Odell Beckham Jr. He is. Yeah. If you look, he's that spark. Their stats are almost identical. The thing that he has over OBJ is that he doesn't have that glitz and glamour. He's not a brand name. He's not a global brand, so to speak. He's kind of the anti-OBJ. He's kind of just that guy that's kind of off to the side that people are like, oh my God, who is this guy? OBJ, it's like, when he's on the field, who he is. When he scores a touchdown, like, oh, that's OBJ. But furthermore, DeMarcus is the 14th best run blocker, according to PFF, at the wide receiver position. With a minimum, you take the guy that is in first, Brandon Ayuk, by the way, Puka Nacua is in second. Not bad for a rookie 5th rounder. You take the guy in first who has the most run blocking snaps, right? You take 30% of that, and that qualifies it down. Take anyone else with less than 30% of those snaps isn't, accumulated for. DeMarcus is 14th. That's saying a lot. OBJ was 80th, and that's not even that bad. It's not like Rams level. You want to be like to put it this way, every Rams starting receiver, Kupp, Nacua, Atwell, Demarcus Robinson, all 4 of them are in the top 30. And wow. Take that, Atwell, people that say that he can't block because he's 5'9". He's a top 30 blocker in the league. Pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, this offense, I think, just continues to get better and better. And, I think with Kyren Williams, we've talked about this a lot on the show, but, he allows that offense to do so much more because he can do it all at the running back position, and he can do it well. So when you have a guy like that, it takes the pressure off Stafford. It allows the ball, I think, to be spread out amongst everybody else more. And they can just get a lot more creative. And it's so, wild and good, for the Rams. You got a guy like Puka Nacua who has a very good chance at winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think, CJ Stroud was probably the obvious front runner, but now he might not even be back this season, it sounds like. So that certainly, hinders, I think, his chance at that. And right behind him was Puka Nacua. I mean, having just an absolutely incredible season. Would be very surprised if he, at this point, doesn't win Offensive Rookie of the Year, unless, they might still decide to give it to the quarterback. I guess that's actually very possible. But then you look at a guy like Kyren Williams, who this is his kind of rookie year, I think, in terms of how people see it. It's not statistically, he's not obviously going to be able to be considered a rookie this year, but his rookie year, he was hurt most of the year. Then when he came back, he played 1 to 2 games and they didn't really use him. He got, a couple carries, few carries. So you look at this year for Kyren, this is also his kind of de facto rookie year. He was named the starter the second game of the season. So he
I
wasn't
know.
even the starter going into the season. So, you got two guys in Puka and Kyron who this is their coming out party. We are now seeing what they are capable of, and are they delivering? I mean, that is an understatement. It's really fun to see those guys do what they do. And then I think Thursday night was fun because we got to see it on prime time. Everybody else got to see it. So you get to see them enter the national conversation for the first time, which was validating as a Rams fan. And I'm sure it was validating for this Rams team who I think has had this narrative about them that's been very up and down all year. You go into the season and you and I didn't agree. I had them at 9-8. I think you had them at 10
Uh,
and 7.
yes, but I
So
think you had them in the playoffs, though.
yeah, we both had them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
So
you and I were on the same page, but the rest of the universe and a lot of the Rams fandom as well was on a totally different page. Their
yeah,
Rams are trying to tank. They're not going to be very good. And that has obviously been proven to be false. So it was very validating, like I mentioned earlier, to see the Rams perform like that on prime time so everybody else could see kind of what we're saying. Like, this team is for real. This is not objective. This is objective. This isn't us being biased and trying to get people to, think the Rams are something they're not. They kind of showed that they were the real deal on Thursday.
yeah. I mean, the Saints were fighting for a playoff spot. That was a very, very important game for them. If they win this weekend, obviously things could change for them. They could sneak into the playoffs. I don't see it. But I just think the Rams were the better team. And I kept going through and I was like, I'm going to pick a close game here because it's a short week and I don't know how Sean McVay wants to go about this week because, playing two games in 5 days, like you don't know. But I'm just in the I don't know. I'm in the mindset right now where I don't think anybody could beat the Rams right now. I really don't. And,
Oh, yeah.
I think there are teams out there that are capable of doing it, but I think if the Rams played the Ravens right now, the Rams would win. Like I think we saw kind of the come up of this team, and I think now that Kyron's in the rhythm he's in, and he's doing it against good defenses. I mean, the Saints are they're a good defense. The Browns were a good defense. That's the one team that held him under 100 yards,
Yeah.
recently, right? The Ravens, he went over 100 yards. People say, oh, it was bad weather. Like, just the usual, let's just make stuff up. Let's just pull stuff, like whatever that fits our narrative. The fact of the matter is that Matthew Stafford right now is the best quarterback in the National Football League. Is he the best quarterback, the grand scheme of things? No, it's Patrick Mahomes. I'm not insane. But right now, over the last 5-6 games, there's not a quarterback better than Matthew Stafford. There's just not. If you go through statistically, if you go through and watch the film, Stafford's making better, bigger time throws than any of these quarterbacks. And I got to tell you, I mean, people are making excuses for Mahomes. He's got nobody to throw to. He's dinking and dunking, or he has to dink and dunk and all that because he doesn't have anybody to throw to. He has no time in the pocket. That sucks, I guess. But like the great ones, and he is great. Don't get me wrong. He's the best quarterback in the league, over the course of a season, over the course of multiple seasons. But I think right now, like we've seen Stafford go through the ringer last year. I don't know why, and you might disagree, but I don't know why the media, like, it's really bizarre because he gets talked about, like, right. He's getting talked about now. Like, we can admit that. But comeback player of the year, he's not mentioned. He's not in the top 4 guys. Tua's ahead of him. Flacco's ahead of him. Baker's ahead of him. And of course, DeMar Hamlin's ahead of him. MVP, there's some people starting to say he's an MVP candidate. I don't agree with that necessarily. Maybe if he had another 4 games playing like this, he could definitely be, because I don't really think a quarterback deserves it this year. I know it's a quarterback award, so they'll win it. But Alexis, I don't know what it is with the media, because it's like Stafford, to me, Stafford is such a plot device for them to have something to talk about, because for years, 13, whatever, however many years he was on the Lions, it just felt like he was always this guy that people didn't take seriously. Stat patter. He couldn't win the big game. He couldn't go to the playoffs. Even though when he went to the playoffs, like the Dallas game was a total screw job. I mean, everyone talks about it. The no call that they literally called a pass interference. And then they're like, oh crap, it's the Cowboys. We got to reverse that. They called it pass interference on the field and they actually were picking up the flag. Bizarre. Ask anybody. It was bizarre. But my thing, Alexis, is now it's like the hot thing to do right now is talking about Matthew Stafford. He's playing well, right? But like, it just feels like this guy never gets legitimate respect. Like, it's like we're talking about him because now the Rams have reared their ugly head where now we have to talk about him. Because if we don't talk about him, what if this team ends up in the Super Bowl? We didn't talk about him all year. We're going to look stupid, right? But this is the only quarterback in the National Football League to throw 3 touchdowns, win the Super Bowl, and not win Super Bowl MVP. This might be the only quarterback to, be in the top 10 or close to the top 10 all time in passing. And he's only had 1 Pro Bowl. He's had 1 Pro Bowl, Alexis. He didn't even win it. The year he had 41 touchdowns. No, not enough. Not enough. And I just feel like for whatever reason, this guy always has to just validate himself. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't talk enough to the media. He's not marketable enough. He's not on State Farm commercials left and right saying auto. God, don't even give me. I hate those commercials with a freaking passion. But I know he had the Little Caesars one, but I don't know, Alexis. Like, I keep watching Stafford play, and I'm like, it feels like just not even genuine when people talk about him. Like, the people that knock him constantly are now like, oh, he's playing so well. It just feels like media fodder. It feels like I heard somebody say it. I'm going to say it to sound smart, but maybe I'm wrong. You let me know. But like, I feel like, genuinely speaking, this has been one of the most disrespected players over the last 15 years in the media circuit.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I don't agree as strongly with you, but I do agree with you because I also think I think that Stafford, he's not and this is not an insult, but this is why I think the media just doesn't really focus on him, is he's not like that flashy. He's not he's not the sexy quarterback to talk about. I'm not talking about like appearance. I'm talking about in terms of game plan, right? Like game style, like a Patrick Mahomes. He's a very fun guy because of the way he plays and kind of his emergence. Now he's got 2 Super Bowls, but what he did early in his career, I think, is a very marketable guy. And what happens, I think, when you start doing that, you do 1 commercial, then you do 2. And the more and more that you start doing, the bigger your name gets and the more recognizable you get. So it feeds on itself. So then you got a guy like Mahomes, who is a very good quarterback. So I'm not taking that away from him. But like, he plays for the Kansas City Chiefs. When have you ever seen a Kansas City Chiefs player have that level of like fame since, I'm trying to think. I don't want to say, well, I was going to say Joe Montana, but like he wasn't there for that long, like Gonzalez maybe. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
oh, just in general. I mean,
yeah, in general,
Trent Green was noticed, but not on the level of Mahomes.
But Priest like, who's doing the state, like a thing like State Farm a million times? Like, I'm talking about like NFL stars. Whenever I think of guys aside from Mahomes and Kelsey, none of them have played for the Chiefs. It's a small town market team, right? So, Stafford was in Detroit. I think the biggest name in Detroit when he was there was Megatron, which again, very good player. But I think he's just kind of flown under the radar. But I think I would prefer it that way. I think I would rather have a quarterback who is underappreciated, is underappreciated but killing it, than a star quarterback who is like underperforming. That's the type of attention that I think would be more annoying if I had a guy like, look at Mahomes this season. A lot of people on Mahomes' case, like you mentioned earlier, his offense isn't doing that well. Travis Kelce's not performing that well. So you've got these 2 guys who get a ton of attention, but it's almost made worse now for them because they have all that attention when they're not playing well. It's like nobody stops talking about it. I think I'd
Yeah.
rather have the quarterback who's playing really, really well, but like people aren't giving him enough attention.
That's
So, but
fair.
I agree with your point.
Yeah, I guess part of me is almost annoyed by it's the fact that people refuse to admit that they're wrong on the national stage. I think it's why I think voters are that petty, where it's why he didn't win the Super Bowl MVP. Because I think it was people saying, I doubted this guy. I said, how could you do this to Jared Goff? This is a mistake. And then he goes out and he wins the Super Bowl. Well, I can't be a part of making him, a Super Bowl MVP. But in reality, when you think about that, that was one of the most ridiculous things ever. Not taking anything away from Cooper Kupp, but he was non-existent in quarters 2 and 3. Stafford had to get through that with Bryson Hopkins, with Darrell Henderson. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're looking at a guy who, like, Kurt Warner was a star. Kurt Warner was a star. Kurt Warner had a story. Matthew Stafford, surprisingly, is a number 1 overall pick that played at freaking Georgia and seems to just get kind of buried behind guys all the time. And it's always, I'll say this, and I'm sure a bunch of audience will agree with me on this because it's so true. Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers always is like, if he's healthy and he's active, he's in the top 10. No doubt about it. There's no argument. He's probably in the top 5 for a lot of people. Josh Allen, top 5, right? No argument. Joe Burrow, top 5, no argument. Lamar Jackson, no argument. Top 5, top 10, always in that. Tua, there's been a little bit of an argument, but I don't think Tua is as good as Stafford. I think he's good. I don't think he's as good as Stafford. But like, out of those guys like Tom Brady and so forth, the guys that have put up really good numbers over the last 3 years at quarterback, Matthew Stafford is on that list. And he's the one that everyone's always like, I don't know if he's quite top 10. I don't know if he's quite top 5. It's always like this rustling of, and my thing is, like, I feel like people try to just make shit up all the time, where, like, for the longest time, like I said it on multiple shows, I was told by people inside the organization he was coming back. I said it. Like, everyone's like, but is he going to play? I'm like, yeah, I just said he's going to play. He's in the best shape of his life. He's playing tennis right now. He's getting in shape. People are like, yeah, but like, I don't know. I'm like, why? Like, I feel like people just saw that video his rookie year, the win over the Browns. Do you remember with the shoulder? And I feel like people just, like, forever, he's a tough SOB. He's the toughest. He's the baddest man in the NFL. Guy just will play through anything. But it's almost like a detriment, because now people are just like, well, he can't be top 10 because he's way too banged up all the time. And it's like, well, I don't know. I'm watching him making all these throws that no one else is making. And, they'll say he's not flashy enough. But then I see him doing all these no-look passes and throwing in between 3 defenders. And I'm like, what kind of flashiness do you want? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not mobile. I mean, I'd say he's a little mobile. He's not a running quarterback, which is very flashy. That is like checkbox right there. But he's about as fun and as sexy, so to speak, flashy as a passer that you can get for somebody that's not a running quarterback. Just the arm angles and the throws he's able to make off platform, they're out of this world.
I also think, like, how many people were watching the Detroit Lions other than Lions fans for a long time? Well, I know you were, but what I'm like, when you hear these kind of people talk, it's like they weren't really watching him play in Detroit. Like, they were, but like they also weren't, because you can tell by the way that, like, they talk about, kind of like you said, they kind of have all their narratives from how the media talked about Matthew Stafford and not actually what he does when he plays. And I also just think, again, because he isn't as flashy, he, like you said, he does have those, cool no look passes, stuff that he does. I feel like he's done more later in his career, but overall, it's kind of like the argument when people are like, talk about Eli Manning, right? How people get so, and I'm not saying that Matthew Stafford and Eli Manning are the same quarterback. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm saying is people can interpret well, maybe I am kind of making a comparison, but it's like when people watch Matthew Stafford play, some people are just like, that's not, I don't see it. They just don't see it. It doesn't matter what he does, right? It's like Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls.
He
And
doesn't
again,
pass the eye test.
yeah, so it's
Heard
not going
it.
to matter what he puts on paper. What matters is what people, when they watch him, if they're like, that doesn't really do it for me. Like, I'm not excited watching him play for whatever reason, whether that's right or wrong, they're going to count him out. And I think that Matthew Stafford has just kind of fallen victim to not being one of the quarterbacks in the league that are quote unquote as fun to watch. But I disagree because I like watching him play, and I think he is, when Thursday night, the Saints game, I was watching the timeline, right? Because I follow a lot of Rams fans, but I also follow fans of other teams. So when there's primetime games on, I see what everybody's saying about the game, not just Rams fans. And a lot of guys were, tweeting like, this is what Matthew Stafford's been doing for years. And like Matthew Stafford has always been him or, whatever. And I'm like, you guys, I bet you did not talk like this a year ago or like,
I
you know what I
know.
mean? Or like 2 years ago. Like, it's just funny how,
This is kind of like an
the full
OG Matthew
circle.
Stafford defender over here. It is funny
You
to see
are.
that.
And listen, I didn't as a lot of people might remember, I wasn't happy when we made the trade. Now, I was screaming to get rid of Jared Goff for a long time. I also want to point that out. Way before a lot of other people were. So I was right on that. Um
Mm.
I was not happy with the Matthew Stafford trade. Um when it originally happened, I've obviously now I am, and it ended up working out. But like again, I could speak for myself. I wasn't probably giving him, well, I clearly wasn't giving him the amount of credit he deserved. I was one of those people where it wasn't that I disliked Matthew Stafford. I liked Matthew Stafford. I didn't see the 2 first-round picks. That was my attitude. It was like, for Matthew Stafford, really, like that I was one of those people that, because when I would watch him, I wasn't like blown away. But I was little ignorant. And again, I hadn't watched the Detroit Lions a ton over the years. So, when I'm calling people out for maybe being a little ignorant, I mean, I was in the same boat. So
Yeah,
I
but
can
you're
speak from
recognizing
experience.
it. That's the difference. There are two elements to this, and
Right.
then
You're
we'll
talking
wrap
about
up
people
this.
who, yeah, you're talking about people who like pretend like they've always been on the Stafford train and,
No, not even that. I don't mind that.
oh, who
That's
still
fine.
say he's not good.
So
Right.
the two elements I think are the most important. First off, the best time to stop being ignorant is now. Like once you realize, once you get like on a show, you're listening to a show and somebody calls you out and you start like actually listening. Like listen to what they're saying. If you fall in that category, just hear them out. Um, I think the biggest element, well, again, two elements. The first thing is, oh, I didn't see him in Detroit. Or I barely
Right.
saw him. When I saw him on Thanksgiving, he would always lose, right? Okay, so based on that, you think he's a loser. You don't think he is a winning quarterback, and you don't trust him. That's fine. You didn't see him a lot, whatever. You can change that by going and watching old Lions games, but you don't have to do that. But now there's no excuse. Now he's on a big market team that has won a Super Bowl the moment he got there, and is now in the second of 3 years where he's actually stayed healthy for the majority of the season. And he's starting to put up gaudy numbers in these last 5 weeks. And I would say this is the best he's ever looked. So you're watching what he's doing now. And if you're still saying that, then you're just wrong. It's not he didn't pass the eye test, is that your eyes just suck. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I think that's my issue, is that a lot of people are so sold on how they felt, even though they had very limited intel and knowledge on who he was in Detroit. You have a chance to redeem yourself in your football knowledge space. And the fact that you continue to double down on something that you just don't know anything about, that's what irks me. And then the second thing that irks me is that it's just this double standard with the Rams. And I'm not saying that it's just the Rams, but I noticed it with Stafford, is that when you had the Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl, it was a super team. There's no super teams. There's 53 players on a roster. You can't create a super team in the salary cap era. You want to go back to a super team, look at what Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson did with the Dallas Cowboys with no salary cap. You want to go look at a super team, look at what the Bill Walsh 49ers were. Okay. Those teams didn't have a salary cap to abide by, right? So that's the closest thing that you can get to a super team. There's a salary cap now. You can't create a super team. And you really can't create a super team when you have all the injuries you had. You had Deshaun Jackson up and leave. You had Cam Akers tear his Achilles before the season started. You had Darrell Henderson having a high ankle sprain going into the Super Bowl and playing with it. They lost Higbee. They lost Fuller right before the game. You talk about OBJ tearing his ACL halfway through the game. You have Eric Weddle come out of retirement. You're starting Troy Reeder at linebacker and Traven Howard. I just have to say, Alexis, I mean, the second element here is that, and I think obviously it's because Stafford's attached to it that they talk about more, but people don't admit that they're wrong when they're wrong. Like, then it goes back kind of the first thing, but it's like, well, we just saw, cause like, I mean, we talk every now and then on this show about like, breaking news and stuff around the league. To me, the Russell Wilson news is gigantic. First off, Russell Wilson, I'm on his side. He should file a grievance. It shouldn't be allowed. Like that should not be allowed what they're doing. I think it's absolutely a disgrace to the Broncos organization. That's first thing I'll say. Second thing.
Yeah, but they got Sean Payton. So are we shocked?
No. Yeah, exactly. The second thing I'll say is this. The Rams proved everyone wrong that didn't believe in their model. They said you can't win Super Bowl with going all in and F them picks and all of that. And I don't think they went all in, but I think they did have the whole F them picks mentality. What people didn't give them credit for is how many picks they hit on late in the draft. But what I don't like is how, you get Brandon Beane, the GM for the Bills, come out and saying, I don't want to destroy our team like, the Rams, and what, they have one more win than the Rams this year. And, you get people like that. You get peers, you get the media coming out and saying they mortgaged their future. Well, why do they have a first round pick next year? They're 8-7 with a chance to go 9-7, make the playoffs and actually win some games in said playoffs while also having $50 million in cap space next year. That doesn't sound like a mortgaged future to me, and it's like the whole thing with the Broncos. No one is talking about the fact they mortgaged their future for Russell Wilson, who showed signs of decline his last year with the Seattle Seahawks. They trashed this Stafford trade. They said, how can you do this to Jared Goff? They made it personal. They were like, I don't know. Jared Goff led him to a Super Bowl. Well, that's fine and great. But I mean, you have the coach and the organization that was mature enough to, step aside and be like, what, we love Jared. We drafted Jared. We nurtured Jared. We built Jared up, but he's not going to be the guy to get us to the promised land. It takes a really, really tough decision to be made to do something like that, to go out and get Matthew Stafford, who is older, who does take some years off of, your window essentially, because he is older, right? But he's still better than Jared Goff. And that's not even the point. People still, to this day, say they mortgaged their future, despite the fact in the same sentence they're talking about this team playing for the playoffs. How did you mortgage your future if you have a chance to go back to the playoffs a year after you were broken, beaten, scarred, 5-12, starting third and fourth string offensive linemen, and you're paying $75 million to guys that currently aren't on the roster? How could that have been possible? The mortgaging of the future thing is just not real. And I just ask, these people who want to constantly just act like the Rams did something wrong, even though they won the Super Bowl, because we've always heard, if you have any sort of argument against Tom Brady being the GOAT, well, he won 7 Super Bowls. He got it done. He won when it mattered. Well, why is it when the Rams win when it matters, it's always, well, they did this and they did this, and it's always these caveats, and it's BS. And I watched the Broncos, and they basically were so ignorant to the fact that they thought Russell Wilson would be the same freaking thing that Matthew Stafford was to the Rams. And they failed immediately. And it wasn't just that they failed. It wasn't just that Devin Witherspoon and Boye Mafe and Drew Lock, a second rounder, no matter what you think about him, they gave up on a second round quarterback, and first rounder Noah Fant. It's not that just all of them went to the Seahawks. No. The Broncos never won and they never got to the playoffs. 2 years with Russell Wilson. It was a disaster. And the media still talks more about the Rams collapse than they do about the Broncos. The Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And now you talk about that and you look at the Browns. The Browns don't get any disrespect. They don't get any blame. They paid Deshaun Watson all that money, and you have their fans they're going to the playoffs, and it's because Deshaun Watson got hurt. Joe Flacco is the reason they're going to the playoffs. This team could win with anybody. Deshaun Watson, they were not going to win with. And the fans are chanting Flacco's name. And they're stuck with all that money. And no one's going to talk about it because now the Browns are going to the playoffs. They're not going to talk about the fact they have $250 million being paid to this guy who we could get into his off the field stuff all we want. But the fact is he hasn't been that great on the field either. And yet, Alexis, and I had a little bit of a rant here because it's been on my mind. We're still talking about how the Rams mortgage their future. There's still people, like I'm watching the Thursday Night Football broadcast, and you still people, they mortgaged their future a year ago. Well, why are you talking about them right now like they have an 80% chance in making the playoffs? Do you not realize how stupid you sound? Like that's ridiculous. They're not the Kansas City Royals. They didn't just win the World Series and then fall off the face of the earth and win 40 games in a 162 game season. This is a team that took everything last year to go wrong. We know, we covered them. They had an insane amount of injuries. And even still, going into the fourth quarter, they were in every single game by one possession except for the Charger game. And then this year, we had to listen in the offseason how, they're going to win 4 games. They're going to win 3 games. And I said, and like you and I, 10-7, 9-8, they're going to the playoffs. Don't worry. And let's say they're not in the playoffs yet, to be fair. But oh my God, it's like they're still talking about mortgaging the future.
It's just an easy, I think it's just an easy
ridiculous.
Well, it is. And, I think the big story, before we preview this Jets game,
Giants
but I'm
game.
going to bring, the Giants game. Sorry, I was thinking about
next year.
Bad quarterback trades. Before we talk about this Giants matchup, I'm also thinking about Daniel Jones and the Giants, right? You see another quarterback that has a massive, now he did get hurt, but you're still looking at before he got hurt, not good. Things were happening. The Giants were absolutely atrocious. They still are in a way. They're kind of up and down. We're going to talk about it. But Daniel Jones, another quarterback, massive contract. Deshaun Watson, massive contract. And you start to see, I think, these backup quarterbacks. I mean, we're going to be seeing one
there's
pivoting.
So many bad pivot. There's so many bad organizations in this football league. It absolutely blows my mind. And it's why I understand, you come from St. Louis, not a lot of people like Kroenke. I like him because he just stays out of it. He funds the bill and he's just like, all right, I'll hire the people to do this because I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, for me, I'm not going to, like, if I needed to have music, we'll say, for a show or for, whatever, like an intro song, I can't play the guitar. I can't play the drums. I can't do any of that. So I'm going to go and hire somebody to go do that, right? I'm not going to try it myself. That would be like Kroenke trying to be like, you know what? Like, could you imagine that after Kroenke turned into Jerry Jones and was like, I think we should draft this guy. Like, that would be a nightmare. And he knows that. And he's aware of that. But I think a lot of organizations, they have really bad management, whether you're talking about just pedestrian. I mean, dude literally is like, his sister's suing him because he's wasting all of their trust fund money over there with the Chargers. I know you always crack up at that, but I'm always going to throw it out there. Indeed, Spanos, the most pedestrian owner in the NFL.
Wild.
But then, another ownership that, like, yes, we give flack to, and he's gone, Dan Snyder with the Commanders, but we don't talk enough about how they had Sean McVay. They had Evero. They had Kyle Shanahan. They had Raheem Morris. They had McDaniel. They had LaFleur. I mean, we don't talk enough about that, but we talk so much about what I was just saying, how like, oh, well, they mortgage their future. We focus incessantly on the Rams about how their shortcomings, even though they won a Super Bowl. But Washington has let about 8 solid head coaches walk out the door, and it's bizarre.
That organization just honestly feels cursed, though. Like, it's kind of
Well, they
like
got a new owner. They'll be
now
fine.
that they have a new owner, I think it'll be fine. But just you look back on the Snyder years and just some wild stuff that happened, was reported on, and just went down that,
Hopefully, this
yeah,
new
I
owner
mean,
respects all races and women. So we'll
yeah,
see. I mean, you know, I
hopefully
guess.
this new owner isn't a psychopath.
I mean,
That
good
let's
lord.
start there. But yeah, but kind of, and we do need to talk about the Giants, so but I
Yeah.
just think I would rather be counted out and disrespected and then, not talked about than be the talk of all the media but not have my team performing. So I think that it might give some of these Rams players a chip on their shoulder. They would never say that, but I think that, hey, maybe, when you feel that you're counted out and you've got stuff to prove, I think you always, things end up better for you than feeling like you're on top of the world all the time. But
Yeah.
Jake, I alluded to earlier the New York Giants and their quarterback situation. And so the Rams are going to MetLife, where Jake will be at. By the way, if anybody is going to the Rams Giants matchup at MetLife on New Year's Eve, Jake will be there.
Just look for the
Uh,
beard. That's all I can say. I
yeah,
don't know what I'll be wearing that day. I might wear 15
just
Tutu Atwell to kind of like make it obvious it's me. So
fair. Jake will just whisper into the wind and
I'll just
he'll
turn
send out a
into
signal.
Wanda Maximoff. I'm
Yeah,
here.
he'll just draw you all to wherever he's at. So don't worry about it. You don't need a plan. You'll know where to find him.
Oh boy.
Um, but the Rams going into MetLife, Jake, are not going to be facing Tommy Cutlets, or
They
as
might.
his given name is, Tommy DeVito. No, they already announced.
No, I'm saying they might bench Tyrod if it gets bad enough
Oh, okay.
to create
Well,
a spark.
I didn't I didn't follow where you were going there, but yeah, they most likely, at least to start the game, let's say, they won't be facing Tommy Cutlets. Tyrod Taylor, the Giants have announced as a starter, which is a little baffling to me, Jake. That's why I wanted to start off talking by this, because I just don't I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, I really like watching Tommy DeVito play. I think that you talk about players getting overblown in the media. I mean, they have ran with his story, probably as far as they can take it, but it's a good story. But I was thinking we were going to play him, and now we're playing Tyrod Taylor. So why do you think that is? And how does this change maybe the way that the Rams defense prepares for the Giants game, if it does at all?
I got to be honest with you. I don't think Tommy DeVito was playing that poorly to bench him when they did.
Agree.
But Tyrod is one of those journeyman quarterbacks that can steal a game. You know, it really kind of gave it to the Bills. Obviously, there's a revenge element there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I actually really like Tyrod. I think it's really, really bizarre because another journeyman quarterback that I thought was pretty solid as a backup was Geno Smith. And it was 2017 when I was at MetLife Stadium and the Rams won 51-17 and Geno was in that game. I believe Eli started the game. They realized it was going to go south very quickly and they put in Geno. Everyone in the stands was chanting "Suck for Sam." There were guys with Sam Darnold Giants jerseys on. It was wild time to be alive. But
That just gave me such a wave of nostalgia
I
that
knew it
you
would. That's why I threw it out there.
because oh my, that it just is such, was that not such a very specific time in the
It
NFL
was
where
it was so
Darnold and
weird.
Wilson and
It was the "Suck for Sam" like
yeah,
bit.
it was
Like
like
everyone
all
was,
these
yeah.
wild.
Because now we've had Tank Suck for Luck, Tank for Caleb, Suck for Sam. Um, I think it's so funny just looking back on it. Sam Darnold
Yeah,
did end up
sorry.
being great.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like I could tell that you were throwing out a bone there about the like
Yes,
that
I
because
was.
yeah, but it was very, what a time. Anyways, continue, but what a
I mean,
time.
yeah, like I said, what a time to be alive. I was like, it was pouring rain, and it
Word
was
to
also
Drake.
funny. It was the narrative game where Jared Goff and I wanted Carson Wentz over Jared Goff. Anyone that knew me back in the day, I was a diehard Carson Wentz fan as a prospect over Goff. I thought there was no doubt in my mind Carson Wentz would be way better than Jared Goff. The thing, though, that I always push back against, because I actually liked Goff, the player, I just liked Wentz more. The thing I always push back against was the small hands thing. I thought it was so stupid. Everyone's like, oh, he has small hands. Watch him in cold weather games. He's going to fold like a lawn chair. And then he had 51 points. He helped the Rams score in that game, throwing all over the yard, throwing a bomb to Sammy Watkins, touchdowns to Robert Woods. Like, he just looks so calm, and it's just hilarious because for whatever reason, since Sean McVay started coaching the Rams, this team just beats on the Giants. First off, they're undefeated against the Giants. I believe they're 3-0. They're looking to go 4-0. But the 2 times at MetLife Stadium, we were at one of them.
Yes,
they have outscored them, if I'm not mistaken, 89-28. I mean,
well, I know the game we were at in 2021,
I think it was 38-11.
Yeah, it got to the point where, like, in the fourth quarter, the stadium cleared out. I mean, we were there because we're Rams fans, but we were at MetLife. The stadium had cleared out. And I don't even think we were paying attention in the fourth quarter. Like, we were with our group of friends, and we kind of all were, like, sprawled out because there was no one in our section. So we kind of were all hanging out. And we were just, like, conversing the fourth quarter, like, kind of watching, but more conversing. And it was just a beat down. It was, like...
It really was. I mean...
not good for them.
Daryl had 2 touchdowns in that game. Caught a touchdown over Tay Crowder on a wheel route. See, I'm Sean McVay. I have great recall. It was on the left sideline too, over his head. Yeah, look at me.
I believe you. I have no way to fact check it right now.
No,
I guess I could.
I'm right, but but no, I distinctively remember we went to get food at halftime, and it wasn't halftime yet, and we're looking up at the TV, waiting in line, and Jalen Ramsey has a pick and he's running it back for 6. And we're like, what? Like, we thought the half was over. We thought they were just going to kneel down. It was an awful half. Just go to the second half, try to regroup. No, they try to go deep down the field. It gets tipped and Jalen takes it back for 6. And it was like, man, that game was just, you know, those are the best games. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. Like, you know, people be like, oh, I love what, you know, close games are fun. But as a fan, I like to have the non-stress level going to a game, knowing that, hey, my team is winning this game, and I can just enjoy. This is just fun. This is entertainment. That's what it's supposed to be. Like, they're just going down the field, putting up points. They're helping my fantasy team. They're helping my bets, things like that. But I don't have any worry. Like, that's why that Saints game was fine by me. I would have loved to beat them by more, but winning 30-22, I mean, that game was like 30-7, it felt like. I never once felt like the Saints were in that game. This Giants game is going to be a little interesting because I'm wrestling with the idea of putting a blowout together or making it somewhat a little close, because I'll say this to the Giants. Wink Martindale, one of the best defense coordinators in football, by the way. Everyone should love Wink Martindale. He's very good at his job. Dude knows football. And he came out and said, you know, it should be Lamar Jackson and Matthew Stafford for the MVP. Like, the guy will say whatever is on his mind. So obviously, you know, some respect being shown there. But what he's done with this defense at home, they are lethal. They are scary. I mean, look at Jordan Love and the Packers. They went in there thinking, we're hot as hell. We beat the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs. We got this in the bag, and they got punched in the mouth, and they should have lost by more. They got bailed out because remember the Saquon Barkley fumble? Like, that rule's stupid. He fell down, like he slipped, fell, the ground caused it, but he wasn't touched. So like it counted as a fumble and they got it back. But I mean, that they were all the way down to like the 20-yard line. I mean, that game's over. But no, I think the Giants defense, like you look at some of the guys on this team, you know, you look at Deonte Banks just playing such good football. You know, just like really disciplined. You know, you watch him, he could play from the trail. Good athleticism. Xavier McKinney is a guy that people forget about because, you know, he got hurt early on in his career, but he's a really good player. Jason Pinnock, I covered when he was with the Jets during the preseason. They stupidly didn't keep him on the roster. They thought he was going to make it through the waivers, and the Giants claimed him. Adoree Jackson can be a monster if he gets the ball in his hand. Obviously, most Rams fans that also are fans of USC know what he can do. Kayvon Thibodeau is the guy. He has been as explosive as I expected him to. I think people were out on him way too quickly. He has been unbelievable this year for them. Okereke we interviewed. So, obviously, that's cool, but he's a really good linebacker in his own right. And then, I think you look at two guys on the defensive line. Dexter Lawrence, first off, has become one of the best interior defensive linemen in all football. The guy's built like an absolute freight train, and he can rush the passer. He can push the pocket into the quarterback. But also, I think the thing with Dexter Lawrence is he can be so stout against the run. He's been dealing with a hammy for a little bit. And another guy who's stout against the run would be my X factor in this game on the defensive side, A'Shawn freaking Robinson. We know what he can do from his days with the Rams. Kyron needs to avoid running anywhere near A'Shawn Robinson. That dude has vice grip for hands. So
that scares me. The idea of
they'll run away from
running
him
right into A'Shawn. Yeah, probably.
They'll run towards Jahad Ward.
Well, this Giants defense, I actually was very high on them going into the year. I actually was pretty high on the Giants, to be honest, going into the year.
I was too. I thought they'd make the playoffs.
Yeah, I as well. And, they just have not had the season they wanted. And then Daniel Jones got hurt. And yeah, Tommy DeVito's come in, and I think he's actually played, pretty well. I was surprised that, he got benched, and kind of like you alluded to earlier, we'll see how long Tyrod plays in this game, or Tyrod. It just feels like they might be loosely starting him. Like they're starting him, but
that's what it feels
you might
like.
not see him the whole game.
You can't bench him after you made that spark decision. Like you wanted to light a spark. Every quarterback always says that, or every coach says that. But they were in that game, and they could have won against the Eagles. And I think to have it come down to the final play of the game where he could have tied it if things went a little bit different, I don't think you can bench him after that. You can't go back to Tommy DeVito. If he makes a mistake, you could be like, all right, we're going back to Tommy DeVito because we need a spark. But, that's how I feel. So,
well, looking at this Giants team and looking at our Rams team, Jake, what do you think is the number one, should be the number one item in our game plan, offensively and defensively? I'll throw it as a doubleheader because like we mentioned at home, this Giants defense, pretty good. I think that they're in general, I think they're a little bit underrated. Then you've got this Giants offense that feels a little bit thrown off with their change at quarterback. That can certainly affect chemistry and things like that. Then you've also got guys, I feel like everyone on that offense, maybe minus Saquon Barkley, is just having a very up and down season. So what do you think the Rams need to do going into MetLife to off the bat score points and just dominate this Giants team?
Yeah, first and foremost, you got to put pressure on Tyrod Taylor. He's going to try to escape the pocket and get out there. You have to be able to finish, get home, force him to either throw it away or, sack the quarterback. Then you also have to limit Saquon Barkley, because I think once you, and this is the thing, kind of goes back to what they did with Kamara, is that once you take away the run game, against this team, what do they have? I mean, they have some weapons that you like, but can Tyrod get that ball to them? And then that's the third thing, is that you have to shore up, because the Rams defense has played well, but you have those moments with the lapses in coverage, the coverage breakdowns, the miscommunications with the safety and corner. And now you've had, a few bigger touchdowns. Isaiah Likely, Odell Beckham Jr., I want to say Rashid Shaheed was the one, and it wasn't Olave, but it might have been Olave on Thursday night. The point is, you can't keep having that. And this is a team that has that. First off, Darius Slayton, we interviewed. Slayton is one of the better, I would say he's one of the better deep ball receivers in the league. Like if the Kansas City Chiefs had him, he'd be over 1,000 yards this year.
He's also underrated. I want to throw that out about Slayton. I feel like because of the turmoil going on with the Giants, he's like very quietly had a very good start to his career. And I just feel like people don't talk about it enough. Sorry, continue.
No, I agree. Wandale Robinson's kind of their gadget guy, but he can still, make plays over the top. I think he's underrated as well. Kind of dealt with some injuries this year. That's been his biggest issue. I think Isaiah Hodgins, who has lineage, obviously, to former Rams fullback James Hodgins on the Super Bowl team with the Gray Show on Turf. Isaiah Hodgins is a guy that, Dable brought over from Buffalo when he was with Buffalo. So he saw something in him. We saw Hodgins kind of break out a little bit last year, had like a good year. This year, he's kind of been a little bit of an afterthought, but I don't think it's his fault. They've had 3 different quarterbacks. Daniel Jones was leaning on him last year, leaned on him in the playoffs. I think he caught a touchdown pass against the Vikings, but Sterling Shepard is not the same guy. Has dealt with way too many injuries. Don't necessarily have to worry about him. Funny, last time the Rams played the Giants, Kadarius Toney started off the game, looked really explosive, then got hurt, was done for the rest of the game, and just they had no rhythm on offense after that. They had Paris Campbell as well. I've never thought much of Paris Campbell. As a football player, I just kind of think he's just another receiver. Jalen Hyatt, my number 1 wide receiver in the draft. The Rams actually passed him up for whatever reason. They did pass him up, I can tell you that. And then they literally passed him up when they passed the pick to the Giants. They traded Jalen Hyatt, the pick that they selected Jalen Hyatt, to the Giants. So Jalen knows that. Jalen Hyatt knows that. And you see these coverage breakdowns and things. Jalen Hyatt's one of the fastest receivers in football. He's going to stay on the field because he's one of the better blockers on this team. I think he's the best blocking wide receiver on this team. He's a better route runner given credit for, because you look at him on Tennessee and it's like everyone's like, oh, well, you know how narratives start. Someone says something about his lack of route running ability. They don't think about the fact that he was never asked to do it. Doesn't mean he can't do it, right? And Tennessee wasn't asking him to run a full route tree. Doesn't mean he can't. And he can. He's a good route runner, underrated. So I think this could be the Jalen Hyatt game. The Rams have to make sure it's not, because that's what's going to keep them in the game. Tyrod will throw it up there. He'll give him a shot. Jalen Hyatt will run underneath it. He has got incredible ball tracking ability. He's got a bigger body, so he can go up and high point the football as well. This could be a problem if the Rams have another one of those, well, we forgot who to cover. And I think I have to say, it's not just me defending my guy Akello. I think a lot of that is on the safety. I don't, not calling out a specific safety, but a lot of that has been on the safety taking the underneath route and letting the guy go over the top when the corner is supposed to take the underneath. Now you have 2 guys going and you're like, there's nobody at the top. So then also there's a reason why the safety normally takes, they're going to cover up over top, because they are the safety, like they're the last line of defense. So I think Jalen Hyatt's huge in this game for them. They have to limit him. And Darren Waller, Alexis. 100% Darren Waller. He's back. The Rams, I don't have to tell you, tight ends do well against the Rams. They do. And some of them haven't for whatever reason, but I'll tell you, Darren Waller is the perfect tight end to give the Rams fits. He's kind of like, that wide receiver tight end hybrid, literally because he was drafted as a wide receiver. But you look at Waller, Georgia Tech, I believe, he's somebody that can be really effective. And then you can't forget about Daniel Bellinger, who I think is really underrated as well. So some guys that they definitely have to keep under wraps. And I think a big guy to do that, to help do that, is going to be Quentin Lake, who's been playing, another guy we interviewed. He's been playing such good football. He is kind of the Swiss Army knife of the defense right now, and he takes that role with pride, and you could see it. Form tackling, athleticism, ball tracking ability. Love to see him get a pick, when I'm there, because I think this guy, he never quite redeemed himself last year. Remember, he dropped the interception against Seattle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see him get an interception. And then the offensive line is just really beaten up. Bredesen at right guard, John Michael Schmitz at center, Justin Pugh at left guard, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and I believe Tyree Phillips at right tackle.
Yeah,
I think you got to take advantage of it. They're healthier than they've been, but you can still take advantage of that. And I think the way Hoyt is playing lately, I want to see him take advantage. He's played well. Byron Young has kind of slowed down a little bit. Still a good player. He needs to take advantage. I think this is also, we talk about Ashawn Robinson being the X factor, Jalen Hyatt being the X factor for the Giants. I think for the Rams, Kobe Turner, 100% on the defensive side. You could also argue Quentin Lake, but I would say Quentin Lake is the most important player on the defensive side of the ball next week against the 49ers. We saw what Kyle Hamilton did. He's not Kyle Hamilton, but immediately when I was watching Kyle Hamilton, I'm like, that is how Quentin Lake is going to be used. But then on the offensive side, I'll say the X factor is Demarcus Robinson because, he's the literal X factor of the offense right now. So that's what I'll say, with all of that. But the Giants have some guys where they can make this game interesting if the Rams have another one of those big time coverage breakdowns. Hopefully that seems like a new thing, so I'm not focusing too much on it. And those things happen, but they haven't really happened much this year up until recently. That has to get corrected, especially before you play against a team with all of the explosion that the Giants have deep down the field with guys that can stretch the field and Slayton, Robinson, and Hyatt.
I agree. And I want to get into the predictions because we're running a little overtime and, we talked a lot about some
The
other
longest
fun
episode
things.
of all time.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think that the Giants and Saquon Barkley comes to mind. They have a lot of very good weapons. Darren Waller is someone who I was heavy on in fantasy when I was drafting and ended up not being such a wise fantasy investment
Well, he
this
got
year.
hurt.
But still,
Not your
he did
fault.
get hurt. And also, that does not mean that he's not going to have a stellar game
No,
on
not
Sunday
at
if
all.
the Rams sleep on him and they don't sharpen those things up that you talked about in defense. But you kind of alluded to it already. But I'll go first with my predictions. You might have slipped some of yours already into the dialogue, which is okay. But I think I might know where you're going with some of yours, so I'm gonna maybe change one of mine. But you know what? No, I won't. You brought up Jalen Hyatt, and I think we are gonna see a Jalen Hyatt touchdown. And you know why I kind of think that this
Wow,
game?
you're predicting on the Giants side. Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, I usually throw in one for the other team.
Okay.
Do I not? Maybe I don't.
Maybe I've never noticed. I don't know.
Maybe I think
Sounded new.
sometimes I don't, sometimes I do, but I'm gonna throw this a Jalen Hyatt touchdown in, and it's because I had I'm in one
So you're gonna say,
championship.
I had a dream.
I just had a dream, yes, that Jalen Hyatt got caught
The
an
All
80-yard
Fathers told
bomb.
me.
No, the reason I'm saying this is because I didn't pick him up and add him to flex for my fantasy football playoff. He was sitting there, and I was looking through some receivers, and I just felt a little bit better about Rashee Rice this week.
Oh, that's not awful.
But when I did that in my mind, I was like, Hyatt is for sure scoring this week because I did that. So I wanted to make it a prediction so that way if it happens, it's not all bad. At least I'm going.
At least I get to be
checking
right.
a box. Yeah. Okay, that's all that I'm predicting for the Giants. On the Rams side, I think we're seeing Tyler Higbee touchdown again.
Tyler
this season.
Higbee.
Yeah, I feel good about him. I watched how he played last week. I know he didn't get a touchdown. He only had 3 receptions. But listen, this is a good Giants defense, but I could see them focusing on everybody else, and I could see Tyler Higbee having a big game. I just could. I don't know. That's a gut feeling, kind of like my first prediction. Second pick, third prediction, second defensively. Or no, first defensively. God, I'm having such a rough episode. If people aren't mad about the temperature, they're going to talk about me stuttering like so many times for some reason this episode. But third prediction, you mentioned earlier interceptions for the Rams. So I think we're seeing an Ahkello Witherspoon interception. I just feel it. I feel good about it. He's been having a really underrated season, and you're smiling because you definitely probably had that as one of your predictions. Reading the body language, it's okay. Now you know how I feel when you go first.
I got a poker face.
I'm sitting here like, okay, what are your predictions?
Oh, is that it?
I gave 3.
Wow, that feels empty. I don't know.
You know what? Because they were boring, and I made one Jalen Hyatt, and I shouldn't have done that because It's not for our team, but I have to do
Shame
it
on
now
you.
because I need to reverse the jinx kind of that I
I
had
got you.
earlier today when I passed on him.
All
I
right.
don't know.
I mean, all right, I'll say this. Let's start off. Let's go nice and spicy because I don't care. I think it'd be really, really cool if Puka Nacua broke not only the receiving yards record for a rookie, but also the receptions record for a rookie in 16 games. I think then, without a freaking doubt, if anyone doesn't vote for him for Offensive Rookie of the Year, then you're a hack. Um, 9 catches, 147 yards. Not gonna say on the nose. I'm gonna say he is going to break it, book it, signed, sealed, delivered. Jake is confirming this to happen. Puka Nacua is going to break both records on Sunday in 16 games. He's going to break Hyatt's record of receptions. So literally break the record because Hyatt broke it in 2021. 2021, we still had the 17 game schedule. So he did in 17 games. Puka's going to break it in 16. And the 1960, look, Bill Groman in 14 games did it. That the times were a little bit different. It's very impressive, but you can't really compare the two times. We have no idea if like he was the only one. We don't know if they were playing on a baseball field or on the playground. We don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, but Bill Groman deserves a lot of credit for that. That record has stood the test of time. Justin Jefferson didn't get it. Jamar Chase didn't get it. I think Puka gets it. And I think he 100% gets them both, but I think he gets them in this game specifically. So I'm going to say Puka breaks both records at MetLife Stadium. I'll be there. That'll be cool. That's first thing. Second, I'm surprised you didn't go with Kyren Williams. I think he's going over 100 yards again. I don't even know how many times that is. Losing track. I mean, he's averaging over 120 a game. His we're starting to see. So Nacua, if you're a betting person, by the way, is hovering around the 66.5 to 70.5 receiving yards prop. I would hit that all day. I've seen 91.5 up to 94.5 for Kyren Williams. I am smacking that into next week.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I just
how could you not at this point?
The Giants struggle against the run, no doubt about it. A big reason is I think the game script for this game. This is likely going to be a game where you can run the ball, we'll just say. So I like that. And then the third thing I'm going to say is, and I got to go with it because I said he was an X factor. I'm going to say that, screw it. Kobe Turner is going to have 2 sacks in this game. Kobe Turner, the conductor, continues to play at a high level. He's going to be named. Well, he's not, because I just realized Puka Nacua was on the team. I was going to say he's going to be named Rams Rookie of the Year. No, he's not. But I think he's going to have some serious run. And who knows if that 49er game is on national television as well. We don't know how the flex scheduling looks. Nothing is scheduled for week 18. So it's all up in the air. But Kobe Turner might have another televised game in week 18. He had a sack against the Saints. People are starting to see it. He could get some serious run towards getting that defensive rookie of the year. And that would be cool because we saw the Jets get offensive and defensive both with Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. But both of those were first rounders. If the Rams did this with a late third and a fifth rounder, holy shit, that's pretty cool.
Stole one of my predictions from last week. I predicted Turner 2+ sacks, I believe, on the episode for Thursday Night Football, and I didn't hit it because he only got 1. But I like that prediction because I feel like he's heating up.
He is.
But getting into our score prediction, and I'm going to keep this short. Yes, the conductor. For those of you who can't see, Jake is doing his Kobe Turner conductor impression. I'm going to try to not stumble my way through the score prediction like I did my stat predictions because I don't even know. It sounded like I was having a stroke. I don't know what was happening. Maybe I was. I don't know. But for the score, I'm going to keep this short and sweet and not make any more mistakes. I'm taking the Rams 28-18.
Okay.
So I don't know how close or far off I am from your prediction you're about to tell me, but I'm taking 28-18 Rams.
So I feel like I already forgot what I said on other shows.
Just what do you feel in
Is
this
what it
moment?
is.
That's all that matters.
In this moment, 34-14.
Okay.
I just like, I feel like we've seen it. You know, the Jets defense is so good, right? And then Joe Flacco and the Browns, they're able to put up all those points. And it just, you can have a great defense, but if you're constantly on the field, your defense gets tired. And I feel like this Rams team, just what they're doing, talking about the balance, even like Chris Long came out and said their drives, there needs to be like a word to describe how like methodical their drives are. He's right. I mean, they're getting like 8, 9, 10 play drives, going 6, 7 minutes off the clock, or even 14 play drives. And as long as they cap those off with touchdowns, like this game isn't going to be close. The reason why, and I'll do it from this perspective. Here's why the Rams are going to win, because of everything I just said. Here's why the Giants could win. The only way the Giants could win, the Rams shoot themselves in the foot. And if the Giants do win this game, then that means, I'm not just talking about the Rams probably don't make the playoffs. I mean, that means that the Rams settled for field goals in the red area, and Lucas Haversick had himself a nightmare of a game. And I can see that. I could absolutely see that. But I can't see him having like missing 6 kicks inside the 20. And that's why I feel like the Rams right now are just playing too good of football. They're averaging 23.8 points on the season. Over the last 4 or 5, 6 games or whatever, they're over 30. The Giants are averaging 14.3 a game. So it's why I kind of like the 14 points. But I'm going to say 34-14.
Yeah, I'm saying 28-17 because the math was not mathing.
You were sitting there for a while thinking about like,
No, I really was, because you know what happened is I was preparing to do this episode and I was like writing down,
that's 6 field goals.
Well, yeah, but I don't think
revenge game. It's possible.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna go that way. But in my mind, what I was thinking was 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and then another field goal, and then I subtracted it because I was like, no, I just think the 2 and the 1, and somehow I got to 18 instead of 17. So 28-17.
So I think the Rams are 6-point favorites on the road. So basically 9-point favorites because the home team would get 3 normally. So yeah, I mean, I think like the blowout script I think is there. I think we finally see Carson Wentz. I am tired of saying that, man. I thought we were going to see Carson Wentz last week and the week before, but
Rams, are you listening? Jake just wants to see Carson Wentz so bad. Like, can you not just for a play? Just put him in for a play.
I know. It's just, it is what it is. But I'd just rather see a W. I don't care if they win 2-0. I always say that. Maybe because I'm going to the game, I care a little bit more that they score points. But the point is, I just hope that they win, which I think they're going to. This is not a game that I'm worried about. And for the love of God, if we could like normalize the concept of not calling every single thing a trap game. Not everything is a trap game. They're 8-7. They need to win this game to make the playoffs. I don't see any way they make the playoffs if they lose this game. Right. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they do. But the point is, it's not an effing trap game. They need to win this game. They're not overlooking anything. And if you listen to Sean McVay, his presser, I thought it was this is why I feel so calm, cool, collected when I'm talking about the Rams. When they're in this element right now, I don't think anybody can beat them because Sean is so week to week. There are coaches that skip ahead a little bit. People act like there's a reason why some coaches only win 4 games in a season. They skip ahead. They do. Sean doesn't. You could hear it. During it's not just PR. I mean, during the presser, it's like they talk to him. They're like, you see all these people saying that no one wants to play you. Do you agree? And he's like, yeah, I don't focus on any of that. I don't look at any of that. I'm just focused on playing the Giants because that's who's scheduled on Sunday. And there are coaches, and we've seen it before in college as well. Like, my God, Dabo Swinney, you know what I'm talking about. When they won,
I just shuddered.
He had 4 losses. Sorry, Clemson fans. Nothing against you guys, but Dabo's kind of a clown. I'll never forget Dabo Swinney. They complete the 8-4 season. And Dabo's like, get your all your stocks, put all your stocks on Clemson. It's like you lost 4 games.
That was,
Like
I
what
think I sent out knowing me, I definitely made a joke about it and tweeted
you
about it,
sent
but
it
I
to
just,
me. You
yeah,
you you
no,
texted me
you're
that and you're
right.
like, I was like, what in the hell? I was like, this Dabo, you aren't the national champion Clemson Tigers anymore. Like, you realize that, right? And Cade Klubnik is your quarterback who I mean, but no, I think to back to the point is that McVay isn't like that. He's like Bill Belichick. We're on to this person. We're on to this. We're on to this. Everyone laughs at it, but that mentality keeps you ready to coach. It keeps your players focused on the task at hand because, people have been saying, oh, well, they're going to be looking ahead to the 49ers. And that's why it's no, they ain't looking ahead to the 49ers because the 49ers game doesn't mean jack if they lose this game. So it's absolutely
Right.
ridiculous to assume that they have a mini bye, which is a gift from the heavens to have a mini bye going into week 17. I mean, you already saw what they did off of one bye. Imagine what they'll do with the mini bye. And now hopefully they'll be playing more than 2 games and they'll make the playoffs. I think they do. You do as well. But stranger things have happened. The way stranger things won't happen is if they come out, they, instill their confidence in their coaching staff and their players. They come out and they just punch the Giants in the mouth. They, assert their dominance on the road. Now they're 9-7. Yeah, they can have some help. I mean, realistically, Alexis, I'm not trying to say this 100%, but the Rams are in a really good position as long as they beat the Giants. They're in a really good position where they will clinch the playoffs before they even play the 49ers.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting a 1:00 game. They're getting a 4:25 or an 8:15. And a lot of those teams, depending on how this happens this week, also, by the way, in case you didn't know, you're rooting for the Steelers this weekend. Even if you don't like them, they
Yes.
have to beat the Seahawks. They beat the Seahawks and the Rams win. Rams are in the playoffs. But next week, if, say, Seattle, loses this week or wins this week, then it would go on to next week. There's nothing else except a Minnesota Green Bay tie on Sunday Night Football, which I don't think the NFL would allow. That'd be such a that would be such a ridiculous game to allow a tie on Sunday. Well, they've done that before, I guess. So is
That's
what it
fair.
is. But yeah, that tie would put the Rams in the playoffs as well. And it would also put Seattle. But then week 18, the Packers so the Rams would need the Packers. If the Packers beat the Vikings, the Rams would need the Packers to lose to the Bears, which is absolutely possible. The Bears been just about every game since Fields has come back. And or they, if the Vikings win, then they would need the Lions to beat the Vikings. That's in Detroit. The Lions still have a chance at the number 1 seed. So, and think about this. They have a chance at the number 1 seed. The Rams have a chance to knock the 49ers out of the 1 seed in week 18. This is very real. A lot of teams are going to need to play tough. So there's no Dan Campbell sitting there like, yeah, we're going to rest our starters. No. Are you kidding me? You want the road to the Super Bowl to go through Detroit. You're going to play your starters. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of variables here. I'm not concerned because I think this team is going to find the playoffs. And if they don't, then I don't know what I'm going to do, Alexis. Let's not think about it.
Let's not think about it. Let's just end it by saying that the Rams need to win on Sunday. And
And they
if
will.
they do, yeah, and they will. Let's end it at that. Yeah. Hopefully we're back celebrating that Rams win in our next episode, Jake. But guys, until then, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBogan. And guys, we'll be back. But until next time, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.